We're here today at the William Barnes Tea at the Exchange in Sturminster Newton, where we're going to celebrate the life and works of the amazing Dorset-born William Barnes. He was a linguist, a scholar, an inventor, a priest and a poet who wrote over 800 poems in the Dorset dialect. We're going to be hearing some of those poems today with an accompaniment by the Ridgeway Band and singers. Downstairs at the Exchange, we've got a pop-up market where local Dorset producers have come to share their wares. We've got cider, we've got art, we've got amazing jewellery. So we'd love to show you what's going on downstairs. We're here with Emma Keys, who's a Dorset-born artist. She's here selling some amazing pieces that she's made locally. What brought you to the William Barnes Tea today?
I like to get all across Dorset so that I can, reach lots of different people and basically show my artwork to as many people as possible.
How is it living in Dorset? What is it about it that's wonderful and inspiring from an artist's perspective?
Well, lots of things. I've lived all over the world, so I've lived in Australia and Italy and all sorts of different places. And actually coming back to Dorset, you don't realise when you're growing up in Dorset how beautiful it is. So coming back was actually really, really nice. It's a quiet pace of life, which is really good for me because that's what I need. For mental health, it's brilliant. So yeah, no, I love living in Dorset.
Are you inspired by the landscape and the animals and the, Dorset architecture around you when you're making your work?
Yeah, obviously there's loads of beautiful wildlife. I mean, driving here today, I saw probably about 50 deer in the field next to me. Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's the next thing on my list.
Keep your eyes peeled for some local deers that will be very soon in this wonderful array of artwork. Where can we find you if we're not able to make it down today to the Exchange at Sturminster Newton? Where can we find your work?
So I'm very regularly at Clark's Village in Street. I have a pop-up shop there sometimes, but I'm also online. You'll find me on all of the usual places, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. I also do TikTok lives very regularly as well, where I paint and I teach people as well.
Fab, thank you so much for your time and good luck with this. I mean, this looks amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, take care. So we're here with Purbeck Ice Cream, who are actually today are under the guise of Purbeck Chocolate, which this looks this looks amazing, absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've brought here, please.
Thank you. My name is Becky and I work in the events team at Purbeck Ice Cream. In the winter months then the ice cream trade slows slightly and that gives us time to produce all this lovely chocolate products. So the bar started literally because COVID made us do it in 2020 and now we've brought through our lovely little grab bags and hot chocolate stirrers in milk and dark chocolate so we can cater for vegan diets still, egg, nut and gluten-free, just like our ice cream, and we're trying to keep going in Dorset.
This is a wonderful thing to have come out of COVID. Chocolate bars. This is a wonderful offshoot of it all. How has today been for you? You having a good day?
Oh, the feel is lovely here. So there's been a really nice trickle of people coming through, purchasing our product, but it feels like a nice community event, so it's great.
And what do you know about William Barnes? Hot question time. And will you be joining us for some poetry or for some singing later?
Well, I hope we can make it up for some poetry. I enjoy it very much. Hilariously, there was a statue of William just across by the stairs and it fell down, so I don't think he likes me that much.
He just wants to eat some chocolate and he can't.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us and best of luck with this. This looks amazing. Thank you, Becky. So John's amazing rum is made here in Lyme Regis with molasses. I'm just going to read this little bit here. Small batch rum, handcrafted in Lyme Regis, distilled from molasses, award-winning genuine British rum. This is so cool, John. What got you into making rum in Dorset?
I just found I was good at it. It's as simple as that. I haven't been very good at crafts, sort of like anything to do with like art and crafts. I've never been particularly good at. I'm very, very scientific and mathematical. And then, but over the years, I've realised that I'm quite a reasonable cook. And lo and behold, it seems that I have good taste buds and good smell, and hence I could produce a really good drink.
So it seems the science in distillation
really goes well with it. Yeah, it really goes well because the record keeping appeals to my OCD side, but it's not all science. There's a real sort of intuition and black art in knowing just how you're going to blend different things together to get a consistent flavour from the rum and everything. Yeah.
How much rum have you had to make stroke consume, but make to get to your award-winning Dorset rum formula that we have in front of us right now?
Well, believe it or not, not very much, because the thing about it is that it's a bit like sort of turning a big oil tanker. You make these little tweaks, and you find out after a while what effect that has. But you can go back to your notes and realise, actually, I want to do that a bit less or a bit more or what have you. But with blending, you can get that consistent, in this case, award-winning flavour. And it's as much about the meticulous attention to detail that makes this as the flavour. So there's a lot, it's because I hand make it. It's a good, really.
I'm standing next to some bits of bark here. What's this for?
So basically, that is my. I go to my French red wine barrel supplier, and I can't have whole barrels because when they're full, they weigh a quarter of a ton, and they'll owe me. So because I make it from 2 outbuildings at home, and I can't get a forklift truck in, I originally thought I was cutting corners by saying, cool, can you split these into staves for me? But as I found out, by using staves, it gives me control over cross-sectional oak exposure and oxygen that goes to it, which gives me the ability to actively get involved in speeding up or slowing down the maturation. And that's why I can have a 10-year-old sort of rum, which is only actually 4.5 years old.
It's really cool. So where can we find you, apart from these wonderful markets and pop-ups and things? Where could somebody who would like to get their hands on some dark Ven distilled rum find your stuff?
So obviously we ship all around the UK, well, and overseas as well, but on the internet you can just buy through the website. We're also stocked in a number of other shops, like there's a shop called Ammonite at the top of Lyme Regis. We're also in Rise Bake Store in Bridport, Athelhampton near Dorchester, and loads of other places I've probably forgotten. Charlbury Wine Store in Weymouth.
Brilliant. So a real proper Dorset-based, Dorset-made product, which is what we're all about today at the William Barnes team, really celebrating Dorset, celebrating the poets, celebrating all the amazing things of Dorset. Will you be joining us later for some poetry, some music, and maybe some Dorset cream tea?
It depends on my wife. I don't know what plans she's made.
What the plans are. Well, the thing that we haven't told you yet, which is actually really important, I think, is that this is an award-winning hangover-free rum, right?
Absolutely.
You've heard it here first.
Yeah. One of the other things I should add is that there are so many so-called British rums who really, they're not British rums. They just import them. I'm not gonna name them because they know who they are, and they just add British water. And the problem is that's fundamentally low quality spirit that they have to add a lot of sugar to make it taste okay. But that's going to be full of additives. It gives you hangovers. Mine is, I make it right from scratch. I know what goes in it. No preservatives, no nothing, no hangovers. It's wonderful.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here to the Exchange in Sturmston Newton. Welcome as well to everybody who's watching this afternoon's Barnes Tea all over the county and indeed probably all over the country and in other parts of the world, because this event, as you will know, is being live streamed. So all over the county, people are doing exactly what you're doing here. And we're absolutely delighted as well that we have the Lord Lieutenant's representative, Sir Philip Williams, with us, and Catherine as well. Thank you both very much indeed for coming to join us. And so we're going to do all sorts of things related to Dorset here, and you can see that the people in the band and the singers are all wearing white, red and yellow, colour of the Dorset flag. And so we're going to begin in a moment with a couple of really cracking local traditional tunes. But first of all, we have Brian Caddy, the chairman of the William Barnes Society, to lead us in the Barnes Toast. So if you've got a programme, you'll find the words of this verse from Praise the Dorset that Brian's going to lead us.
So these seasoned campaigners out there on their third Barnes Tea will all know this off by heart, I know. So you repeat what is in the bold print. If you in Dorset be a Roman and of business at a farm, then won't he see your ale of foaming or your cider down to warm? Won't he have brown bread a putchie and some vinny cheese a cutty? Butter?
Rose
Cream?
Rose
Won't he have in short your fill a guide wi' a right good will? Friend and wife, fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, happy, happy be their lives. For Dorset dear, then gie one cheer. To hear? One cheer. Hip, hip, hip.
Hooray! Thank you, Brian. much, everyone. Well, we're going to continue with a song in a moment called I Live Not Where I Love, which is one of the many hundreds of folk songs that was collected here in Dorset by the Hammond brothers, Robert and Henry, between 1905 and 1907. I Live Not Where I Love was collected in Puddletown from a singer called Robert Barrett, but the words we know go right back to the 17th century, and we don't know at all who made up the melody, but it's surely one of the most beautiful tunes that we have in English folk song. And just prior to that, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce to you Charles Buckler from the William Barnes Society, who's going to read a cracking poem called Blackmore Maidens.
Blackmore Maidens has a place name in it called Paladore, and some people may not realise that Paladore is present-day Shaftesbury. It's an Anglo-Saxon word, and the Anglo-Saxon period was roughly 500 AD down through King Alfred to just before the Normans came. And it was, if you look up in the dictionary, there's a lot of words that come from the Anglo-Saxon that are everyday use. All our days of the week come from the Anglo-Saxon. Animal names like cow, swine, chicken, and sheep are all Anglo-Saxon words. And we're using it all the time. Barnes realised 200 years ago that the Dorset speech, the dialect, would be dying out. And that prompted him to write a lot of these wonderful poems. And this one's called Blackmore Maidens. The primrose in the shade do blow, the cowslip in the sun. The thyme upon the down do grow, the clote where streams do run. And where do pretty maidens grow and blow, but where the tower do rise among the brick and tons in Blackmore by the Stour. If you could see their comely gait and pretty faces smiles, a tripping on so light a weight and stepping off the stiles, a going to church as bells do swing and ring as in the tower, you'd own the pretty maiden's place is Blackmore by the Stour. If you from Wimborne took your road to Stour or Paladore, and all the farmers' housen showed their daughters at the door, you'd cry to bachelors at home, here come, within the hour you'll find 10 maidens to your mind, in Blackmore by the Stour. If you'd have looked within their door to see 'em in their place, a-doing housework up afore their smiling mother's face, you'd cry, why, if a man would wive and thrive without a dower, then let him look out a wife in Blackmore by the Stour. As I upon my road did pass a schoolhouse back in May, there, out upon the beaten grass, were maidens at their play. And as the pretty souls did twile and smile, I cried, the flower of beauty then is still in bud, in Blackmore and the Stour.
The next musical item we're going to play for the singers and band is a musical setting I've done of a William Barnes poem called Rustic Childhood. And this is one of the many poems that Barnes wrote in National English. It happens to be very close to my heart. It reminds me so much of my childhood, being brought up on a farm here in Dorset in the 1950s and 60s. But before that, I'd like to recite William Barnes's poem, The Blackbird. Now, Barnes wrote two poems called The Blackbird. The first appeared in 1844 in his first collection, and this one appeared in the second collection in 1859. So this is The Blackbird by William Barnes. Trout at Penley I'd a passed, a summer day that went too fast. And when the setting sun did spread on western clouds a fiery red, the elm's leafy limbs were still above the gravel-bedded rill, and under him did warble shrill, afore the dusk the blackbird. And there, in shades of darksome hues, did flee the maidens on their twos, a laughing shrill wi' merry face, when we did find their hiding place, within the loose-bowed ivy's gloom, or lofty lilac full in bloom, or hazel rides that gied 'em room below the singing blackbird. Above our heads the rooks did flee to reach their nested elm tree, and splashing fish did rise to catch the wheeling knots above the hatch. And there the miller went along, a-smiling up the shady drong, but yet too deaf to hear the song a-sung us by the blackbird. And there the shrilly bubbling brook did leave behind his rocky nook, to run drew meads a-chilled wi' dew, from hour to hour the whole night drew. But still his murmurs were a-drowned by voices that mid never sound, again together on that ground, we whistins all the blackbird.
No safety criminals train my feet to slanty childhood through the streets, but freedom let them loose to tread the yellow castles down my head, or climb above the twining hop and ivy to the elm tree's top. Where southern airs of blue sky recall the daisy and the may. See dark leaf boughs, the evening light on green hill brows. I knew you, your dove, and now you shall shady bough. I knew your dove, and now you shall shady bough.
Over the hill, look where I lay,
At rest on some bright holy day,
when short-lived shadows lay below.
the thorny blossom white as snow, and all that bent the glistening tops of bushes in the lowland copse.
Before the blue hill swelling high,
And far against the southern sky,
I knew you,
shady bough. Shady bough.
Thank you very much. So in a moment we're going to play a poem by that other Dorset writer that one or two people may have heard about. What's his name? Thomas somebody or other. Thomas Hardy. Hardy wrote some wonderful poems about country life and about country pastimes as well. And this poem is one of his most heartwarming, I think. It's called Great Things. It's the three things that Hardy thought were best in life, which were in no particular order, I don't think: cider, dancing, and love. So I think most of us can probably agree with that. So that'll be coming up after this. Phil has very cleverly interspersed the song with lots of country dance tunes. The first one is called Here's a Health to All Good Lasses. And then I think we hear, is it the fairy dance, isn't it? Yep, we hear the fairy dance, and then a really beautiful song towards the end, played as an instrumental, the sheep shearing song, Rosebud in June. So that's to follow, but now we're going to hear one of Barnes's most lovely poems, I think, read by Brian, which he will introduce.
Yes, as Tib said, this is one of Barnes's most beautiful poems, probably one of the most poignant ones, because it deals with illegitimacy, which probably was pushed under the carpet many times in Barnes's day. It's called The Love Child. Where the bridge out the Woodley did stride, wi' his wide arches, cool-shaded bow, up above the clear brook that did slide by the popples befolded white as snow, as the gill-cups did quiver among the white daisies as spread in a sheet, there a quick-tripping maid come along, aye, a girl wi' her light-stepping feet. And she cried, "I'd a pray, is the road out to Lynchcombe on here by the mead?" And oh, east I made answer and showed her the way it would turn and would lead. Go along by the beach in the nook, where the children to play in the cool, to the stepping stones over the brook, aye, the grey blocks of rock at the pool. Then you don't seem a born and a bred, I spoke up, at a place hereabout. And she answered, wi' cheeks up so red as a penny, but later come out, "No, I live with my uncle that died back in April, and now I'm a come here to Ham to my mother to bide, I to her house to find a new home. I'm ashamed that I wanted to know any more of her childhood or life, but then why should so fair a child grow where no father to bide wi' his wife?" Then we blushes a sunrise in morn, she replied, that it midn't be known. Oh, they sent me away to be born, aye, they hid me where some would be shown. Oh, it made me almost teary-eyed, and I found I almost could have groaned. What's a winning and still cast aside? What's so lovely and not to be owned? Oh, a God gift treated with scorn. Oh, a child that a squire should own, and to send her away to be born. Aye, to hide her where others be shown.
Well, we've got a little diversion from the programme now because instead of another Barnes poem, Voices of the Dead, we're going to hear a newer piece of Dorset writing. Barnes was the first person really to write a considerable body of poetry in the Dorset dialect, and it was hugely influential at the time. Going back to the 1840s and the 1850s, when the poems were first published, they were published in the Dorset County Chronicle, and at first, because they were written in dialect, the readers assumed that they were all funny. Because dialect at the time, was looked down upon, and people were taught not to, in schools, were taught not to speak in the dialect. But Barnes thought that the speech and the words were worth preserving, and thank goodness he did, because they're still alive and very vigorous today, and it's largely thanks to him. And his writings, he began to go around giving lectures, and always he would include a few poems at the end, and they became in their day as popular as stand-up comedians are nowadays. And there are vivid accounts of when he went to Crewkerne and did a lecture there. The hall was completely packed. There were people on the stairs outside in the fire escape and peeping in through the windows to listen to the Dorset poems. And this had a big influence that spread all over the West Country, and there are writers in all the West Country counties that wrote in the dialect. And that comes down even to modern times, really. P.J. Harvey's latest book, Orlam, if anybody's had a look at that, that's written in Dorset dialect. Well worth having a look at. And she went to Barnes's glossary to look for some of the words that are included in that. So that's the most modern. But Brian is going to read us now a piece. Well, perhaps he'll introduce it. But this, I think, is something that will resonate with everybody who's grown up in an agricultural community in Dorset, which is the whole county, really, isn't it, over the last few years. Brian.
Get this right, I might end up on the Palladium, who knows? This is a piece, as Tim has explained, this is a piece that we think was written by Netta Taylor from Uploaders, who was quite prolific, I think, wasn't she, with her dialect reading, and it's a lovely piece. We thought we ought to share it with you. Tim discovered it about a couple of weeks ago, so if I do stumble now and again, you'll appreciate the reason why. A bit of binder string. Has thee ever heard of old Bill Bates, who worked for Farmer Drake down at Badger's End? Oh. There weren't a tool that feller couldn't mend, from a hay fork to a harvester, or any mortal thing. Old Bill had always put it right, with a bit of binder string. One day the Frisian bull got out and raged and tore around. Nobody durst go near him as he roared and pawed the ground. Boss shouted, "Bill, the Frisian's out, and Binna broke his ring." So Bill lassoed the beggar with a bit of binder string. Now Bill'd been courting Mabel 7 years, and thought 'twas time they wed. Says he, "I got a table with some chairs and Grand's wood feather bed. There's half a ton of teddies up in Phil that I could bring, and I could make a handsome doormat with a bit of binder string." "Yeah," says Mabel, "let's get wed afore they cut the hay." So they went and had a slap-up do on the 17th of May. All went well till they got to church, and Bill found they'd lost a ring. So he had to marry Mabel with a loop of binder string. Next year, a little daughter come to bless the happy pair, with girt big eyes like saucers and a girt tuft of ginger hair. Says Bill to Passon Merryweather at the christening, "Look, see, her hair be the colour of a bit of binder string." Now years rode on and Woe Bill died, and as he come to heaven's door, he heard the saints a-singing there, and he were worried sore. He says to good St. Peter, Sir, I ain't never learnt to sing. I've always been kept too busy mending things we binder string. Oh, that's all right, St. Peter said. The good Lord understands. He were once a carpenter, so he likes to see folk use their hands. So now, while the angels play their harps and all the saints to sing, would Bill mends little cherubs' toys with a bit of binder string.
There we are. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So we're going to play one more piece for you before we have the tea. So folks back at home and in the care homes and everything, put the kettle on now. But this is very local. We're going to sing a Christmas carol. I know it's February, but when our group started back in 2013, we came about through Artsreach, and this is an Artsreach event, and you will all know what wonderful things Artsreach do in promoting the arts in Dorset and in the villages in particular. And Phil and I were asked if we'd like to see whether anybody was interested in singing some of the old songs and playing some of the old tunes that were performed in and around the South Dorset Ridgeway. So we started looking, and we got put out a few adverts and things, and this is the result. All these wonderful folk behind you. The membership of the Ridgeway Singers and Band does fluctuate a bit. Some people go, people come, but it's become an abiding interest for us all, and we're very grateful for that. So we looked first of all at Christmas carols and all the Christmas music, rather like Hardy writes about in Under the Greenwood Tree, when the local musicians in the days before church organs played their fiddles and their flutes and their whistles and their serpents, like Phil was playing earlier on, in the village church band. So this carol is one of our favourites. It's very local to here. It comes from Marnell. No, it doesn't. It comes from Hinton St Mary, even closer, just up the road. This is one of the carols they used to sing there. It's a wonderful carol. So we'll finish the first half with this, and then it's tea time. This is called Hark, Hark.
Hark, hark, how sweet
My name is Kerry Bartlett and I'm the Executive Director of Artsreach, the rural touring scheme here in Dorset. We've been working in Dorset for many years now, and our role is to take professional performances of music, theatre, dance, family work, storytelling out into rural communities, making the arts more accessible to people living in the area. The wonderful thing about what we do is that we're making use of these community spaces. So during the day, they're spaces that might have, say, the toddler group, the WI, the bingo. They're often home to the local amateur dramatics groups, the choirs. They're brilliant spaces. And then we're able to come in a few times a year and just transform them into a performing space. But I think sometimes it can leave people with a question about who are the artists that we're touring. And so it's a real blend of performers that are often national or international. We've just had singers over from America for a few days. We've welcomed some Canadians in the last year. And some of these are going off to big festivals on the back of our tour dates. I think the latest tour we had featured Yetminster and Blandford, but then they were off to Bath Guildhall and the Celtic Connections Festival. So it's amazing to see our venues popping up in these bigger tour lists. We've got Edinburgh Fringe Festival performers, we've got award-winning poets and comedians this year, so it's a real mix of professional performers that we're bringing to the stages. The model's designed in a way that it should support everybody that's involved. So first and foremost for us, it's really important that the touring artists are being paid appropriately for the work that they're doing, because it's a really hard sector to be working in. So whatever happens, we use our funding to underwrite those artist fees. We're then obviously selling tickets for the events, and the model then allows a percentage of that box office money to stay in the rural communities, which goes towards the upkeep of the venues that we're using, which are predominantly village halls, but occasionally might be churches or school spaces. And in the last year alone, it was around about £35,000 was raised and retained actually in rural communities across Dorset, which is really important for these spaces. Aside from the main touring programme, there's often a variety of projects that will pop up through the year, and things that allow us to be a bit more creative and hopefully engage people in a slightly different way. So last year, for example, we were lucky enough to work with the Bristol Sea Shanty group, the Longest Johns, who were a band that we'd actually toured several years ago before they really exploded onto the folk and shanty scene through lockdown. We brought them down for 2 performances in Dorset, which was great. And then we noticed that through the lockdown, they were doing a variety of online projects where they were creating community songs, teaching people songs. People were recording themselves at home and then sending these in to them. And we thought, what a lovely thing to do, but could we get them to do it live? And what would we get them to do? So we spent a bit of time thinking about the nature of their work and what we would want them to focus on. And we commissioned them to write a song which was all about the Jurassic coastline and the history and the heritage of the quarrying and the stone industry along the Jurassic coast. And they wrote this incredible song called Drop the Hammer, which we then put out there to several Dorset choirs who learnt the piece and then came together with the Longest Johns at the Mowlam in Swanage to sing it, record it and set it to a film. And then this was launched as part of the Longest Johns album tour before they went off touring America last year. So it was a really amazing way to bring people together to sing something truly about Dorset, and for local choirs to work with a touring group of professionals as well. So this is Drop the Hammer by the Longest Johns.
Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, knock 'em down and split the stone. Million years and more it's lain to build our churches, streets and homes. Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, heave 'em up and haul 'em in. Every block a new reminder where we are and where we've been. From the moorlands, coves and harbours, fashioned at the sea's command. Walk the beaches, climb the cliff face, through the door and cross the sand. Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, knock 'em down and split the stone. Million years and more it's lain to build our churches, streets and homes. Where'd you get that grand cathedral? What a sight, your mighty halls. Took apart this sturdy coastline for to build your city's walls. Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, knock 'em down and split the stone. million years and more it's slain to build our churches, streets and homes. Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, heave 'em up and haul 'em in. Every block a new reminder where we are and where we've been. Steady now, hey! Hit her back, hey! Drive her in, hey! Smash 'em, hey! Steady now, hey! Hit her back, hey! Drive her in, hey! Smash 'em, hey!
And it's every year it wears away, and time and its creeping dance. Storms and waves against the rock face crumbles into the expanse.
Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, knock 'em down and split the stone. Million years and more it's slain to build our churches, streets and homes. Drive the wedge and drop the hammer, heave 'em up and haul 'em in. Every block a new reminder where we are and where we've been. Steady now, hey! Hit her back, hey! Drive her in, hey! Smash 'em!
I think one of the things that we're most proud of is how broad-ranging our programme is. So there's quite a lot of music that tours, and that will be across all genres, so folk, classical, jazz, there's a little bit of something for everybody. But then we've also got a lot of either established or emerging theatre companies and performers that we work with, so solo theatre or touring ensemble theatre. Quite a lot of children's companies. I think it's really important that children and young people, particularly in rural areas, have access to seeing live performances. So we've got a lot of puppetry that happens over half term and in the summer holidays. There's also quite a lot of poetry that tours and storytelling that seems really popular with audiences. And then in the last few years we've also been really involved in touring quite a wide variety of dance performances as well, which is quite challenging to place into rural venues, but it's sometimes one of the most exciting things that we do. As part of Tea with William Barnes, we've partnered again with Dorset Food and Drink. So in the morning, we've got a local producers and makers market taking place. Back in 2021, we ran another project where we wanted to really celebrate the amazing wealth of food and drink producers that we've got here in Dorset. I think we're really proud of, or part of Dorset's culture is also the food and drink culture. And so we were really aware through the pandemic how there was a real drive to shop locally, and people were supporting local producers probably more than ever before. So when we came out of the pandemic, we wanted to do something to mark this. And we worked with poet Liv Talk, who wrote us a brand new poem called Dairy Cows and Dorset Knobs, which was celebrating that very thing, so championing some of the food and drink producers that we've got here in the county.
From the great globe at Durlston Castle, you can see the Milky Way reflected in a spoon, licking Purbeck raspberry ripple under a tipsy Swanage moon. We sip the grapes of Furley Fizz, sup shellfish caught on Weymouth shore, watch the sun set over fishing boats, dipping languid over Durdle Door. At 56,000 kilometres an hour, it would take 81,000 years to reach the nearest star. Better save some diesel, keep it local, keep it fresh. Place your footprints lightly, spend your pennies close to home without packaging unsightly. From farm to fork, from seed to tree, with a no excess plastic guarantee. Blue Vinny cheese, organic veg, jams and pickles from the hedge, delivered safely to our stores, arrive like Christmas at your doors. Prime beef from Abbotsbury, succulent sausages from Duck's Pantry, dairy cows and Dorset knobs, apple cake from Anstey. Fueled by organic artisan preserves, we get the food that we deserve. Babou Gelato, West Bay crabs, flavoured olives from Etel, Badger beer from Blandford, Portland lamb with Zinfandel. So crack open the Moore's biscuits, pour a slug of Dorset gin. Remember, it all tastes better after you've done the recycling. So here's a massive thank you to the growing businesses that make sure we get fed, and to everyone who visits us or orders in from bed. You help our shops stay open, keep communities from the brink. By putting your money where your heart is, you support Dorset Food and Drink.
I love my job. I love my job. I've been with Artsreach now for coming on for 13 years this year. There's a number of reasons I love it, but I think the people is probably the main thing. It's working with volunteers in different communities. They're all such different people with interesting backgrounds, interesting approaches to the way that we do what we do, and also the people in terms of the artists that we get to work with as well. So doing that, sort of bringing those people together is a really exciting thing. And when you see all of that happen and come to life, I think a lot of what we do upstairs is the planning stage, but when you're actually in a village hall and seeing the magic happen, you realise how special it is. This year, 2025, sees Artsreach celebrate 35 years of doing what we do here in Dorset, which I think is incredible, and that's really testament to the volunteers in the communities that are making everything happen, their energy for doing this. It's sometimes not easy to put yourself at the forefront of your community and be brave and say, I'm bringing this to the village, come, trust me, you'll love it. It's a really important role. And also the audiences, they keep coming back. So as long as there's volunteers that want to make it happen and audiences that are enjoying it, hopefully we'll be doing it for another 35 years.
So Phil, that tune sounds really ancient. What's it called?
Well, it's a credo from a plain chant, and it takes us right back to the early days of when the serpent was invented. This was 1590, invented by a French monk, and just purely to accompany choirs in church.
So there would have been monks singing the same tune?
Absolutely, yes. That's right. They'd be singing along with the serpent. The serpent led the services.
And presumably singing all in Latin at that time, do you think?
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yes, very much so. Yeah. So this instrument was actually invented for that purpose. He modelled it on another instrument that was around at the time called a cornetto. He scaled up the dimensions of the cornetto and ended up with an 8-foot long tube, which had to be folded in some way or another so that one player could get at the finger holes and the mouthpiece at the same time.
So if you stretched that out straight, it would be 8 foot long?
It'd be 8 foot long, that's right, really? from the bell end right to the mouthpiece.
Amazing.
Yeah, about 8
and
foot.
but it produces this lovely bass sound, but it also can play quite high as well, can't it?
Yes, and of course in those days it covered the whole of the male voice range, tenor down to bass. Yeah. We didn't mention the wood. It's carved from wood.
Yeah.
Which is then covered in leather. It's made up of small half-section pieces, which are then put together like you put together a wooden pencil, two halves put together. It has 6 finger holes, and because glues at this time were a little bit unreliable, they were animal-based, and once you start blowing warm, moist air into something that's held together with animal glue, you can imagine you can gather a few problems. So the whole thing is then covered in leather as a kind of backup system.
To keep it all together, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then, in later years, it moved out of the church and became a military instrument for a while? Or?
Yes, that's right. When we get into the 17th century, there are plenty of pictures showing English military serpents.
Ah.
They're quite different from this. This was leading a very sheltered life in church.
Yeah.
But of course, it had to be slightly more robust
Okay.
to be used for military purposes.
So it's got little brass bits on it, and it's got kind of is that to allow for a strap or something?
Because of its less sheltered existence, it needed a bit more support, really.
Yeah.
And it's much heavier than
It
the
looks
church
heavier.
stuff, much heavier. You could almost use it as a weapon.
Well,
So other than that, it's the same length of tube,
Yeah.
more squashed together, made of much thicker material, thicker wood. Other than that, it's very much the same. You will notice there are 3 keys on it, though.
oh yeah.
Now, as we
Yeah.
get later on into the serpent's history, people start to put keys on to help with the intonation. It's a really badly designed instrument. You can imagine, if you imagine a flute or an oboe, the finger holes are more evenly spaced along the length of the bore.
Yeah, very close together, really.
But but with the serpent, they're all clustered together in the middle. And it's the only way that one person can get at the finger holes and the mouthpiece at the same time to cluster them like that. So they're not always in the right places.
So ideally, we should be playing it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes, that's right. Then the finger holes could possibly be spread along the length of the bore better. Yeah. So the key work on here just sorts out some of the really awkward notes. On that serpent, on the church serpent, B's and C's are on the same finger group. But on this serpent, you can play a C, and you've got a key. Play a really nice B.
So we know this instrument now in context of what we do in Ridgeway. This is as an instrument that was played in Dorset in church bands.
Yes, that's right. Because it tended to be ex-military players or even military people that were musicians in the military that were seen in the West Gallery bands.
Yeah.
It tended to be. In fact, there's a gravestone at Minstead Church, which has actually got a serpent carved in the top of it.
Really?
A chap called Thomas Maynard, and he was a member of a church band. Yeah.
And Hardy loved them and writes about them quite a lot.
Yes, at least 10 of Hardy's works contained mention of the serpent. That's the short stories and novels. And there's one poem that mentions Serpent Jim.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my favourite bit is in Under the Greenwood Tree. You know, when all the musicians are together in the gallery and they're having on Christmas Eve, isn't it?
That's it.
And they've been out going the rounds, singing carols and carrying their instruments with them, and they start talking about how suitable different instruments are for playing religious music.
Yeah,
and what's the quote about the serpent that somebody says?
Yeah, well, the clarinets be death.
Yes.
Yet there's worse things than serpents.
That's it.
Old things pass away, 'tis true, but a serpent was a good old note. A deep, rich note was the serpent.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree with that.
I hope so.
So, Phil, we're used to people at school learning different musical instruments and having lessons on the flute or the violin or the guitar or whatever. How did you learn to play a serpent, and how did you come to want to play this instrument?
So I started on trombone, actually, and went to college in London, studied the trombone. And after this, I became a member of a dance band, travelling all over the country, and just fancied getting into another type of music, and became very, very interested in Renaissance music. So that got me into Renaissance woodwinds like recorders and crumhorns and rackets and Rauschpfeifen and the sackbut, which is the ancestor of the modern day trombone.
Of course.
And that developed by going to see a chap called Christopher Monk down at Hindhead in Surrey. And he made that church serpent I played earlier, actually, Christopher did. I'd visited his workshop, shown all around, and just fell in love with it. And I've been playing it ever since. And that was 1979. That was.
And you have actually been all over the world playing this instrument, haven't you?
That's true, yes. With Melstock Band and with various London groups, Gabrielli Players, and with Phil Pickett's new London Consort.
So the Serpent, has got a very long history and a serious instrument, played serious music in its time, but it also, Phil, you must admit, does have a kind of comical quality to it. And you and I had this story that we were performing 2 or 3 years ago. Do you remember?
That was fun.
Which was really good fun, where there was a musician who played the Serpent, and this chap didn't believe in pixies, and he came rather unstuck.
Did he ever hear tell of how old Abram Stocker were pixie-led a few Christmases ago? Well, far as I can make out, he were up to his old capers down in the Red Lion one Christmas Eve, and they girt gap-mouths down there was talking about all sorts of things what they didn't know naught about as usual, and laying down the law about this and that. Well, at last, they got round to pixies, and all that sort that nobody don't know naught about. And Abram says,
I bain't afeard of ghosts or jackies or pixies nor spirits, not if that were the last words I spoke.
well, the last words be true ones, Abram, says the landlord. I never knowed he'd afeard of spirits. Here, have another brandy. Abram Snow had been at band practice and he had his old serpenty thingamy with him. And after turnout, we could hear him a long time going up the street and tooting out as he went up over the hill towards his place. Well, then it got a bit wheezy as the old feller ran out of breath, and then everything was quiet and we didn't hear no more. Well, he didn't turn up at band practice the next week. And Frank Gedges was up around and he heard he'd been taken bad and he called in to see him. And then we heard the rest of the tale. Old Abram, so seemed, got along pretty well along the level ground. And then, going down the old drong to his place, he tumbled over in the ditch 2 or 3 times and scraped his face pretty badly. And then, going across that piece of ground by the common towards his house, he seed lights, 2 of them, bobbing around as he was going along. What thinks he to himself?
Well, that be the lights to our 2 windows to home. But what be 'em so wombly for?
So away he went straight for the light. Soon he were hitting his foot upon clumps of grass and moss and mud, and then down he went up to his breeches pockets in muck. He'd gone in upon a bad piece of quaking bog and gone clean through. Sobered he up at once, that did, and he had the sense to keep still so he didn't sink no further into the bog. And then he seed they lights bobbing around, mocking him. He knowed then 'twere pixie lanterns, but he had the sense to keep still so he didn't sink no further down into the bog. And then he took and he blowed on his serpent like 'twas practice night and payday and club night all in one. Well, luckily they heard him at home and out turned the lot of them to find him.
Father! Father, where be Father?
Pom, pom, pom went the old music, and they followed the sound. One of t'others turned back for a wagon rope, and Paul hollered out to him,
Father! Father, bide still, Father! Turn thee pockets inside out! Turn thee pockets!
well, he couldn't reach his pockets, he was that far down in the muck, but he took his old hat and he turned it upside down and banged it down on top of his head. And then he felt safer and better. When the boy come back with the rope and they flung it out to him and he tied it round himself, and then they haulied and haulied and haulied and at last they got he out. They took Abram home, put him to bed, and next day he couldn't hardly speak, he were that hoarse. He'm purty husky yet, but he's getting better, and he will have the old serpenty thing hung up on the bedroom wall, just where he can look at it when he's a-minded to.
Vicky saved my life.
And so it did, I believe. But we never heard Abram say naught against the Pixies after that.
Well, Tim, I've just heard that you've been awarded a gold medal.
Oh, it's not a gold medal, actually. It's a very unusual gold badge, and this is something that the English Folk Dance and Song Society give to people, 2 or 3 people every year. It started right back in 1923, I think, and I believe the first person to get it was probably Cecil Sharp. And then later on, Ralph Vaughan Williams was given one.
Gosh.
And so all sorts of important people in the folk revival have received these badges, and quite a lot of traditional performers as well. William Kimber, who was the famous concertina player who played for Headington Morris, I think. He was one of the early people that got it, and Ewan MacColl, which many people will know about, and his wife Peggy Seeger later on got one. And in more recent years, Martin Carthy, and then Eliza Carthy, and Kate Rusby, and people like that. And here in Dorset, of course, we've had a couple of people who've had the badge. Bonnie Sartin's got one, and Eddie Upton.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, but it's a lovely thing to have had, and, I've had, best part of 50 years now, singing traditional music and playing music and using the songs in plays, as you know, and with the Mellstock Band yourselves and the Scorpion Band, and of course a lot in Dorset with all the community plays and so forth. And it's just such a rich form of music, isn't it? And the songs that we hear when we do Ridgeway, you and I have been able to draw on these songs and tunes and the dances as well that Angela does. All these things we've learnt over the years and been able to pass on to other people. And kind of that's really, I think that's what the music's all about, really. It's about having a folk music, an inherited music that you then share and pass on to other people. And it's been particularly rich, I think, for you and I doing these Barnes suppers, as it was first, and then Barnes teas. We've got a bit, as we've got older, it's got a little earlier in the day, hasn't it? But we do Barnes teas now. But it was derived originally from the idea of a Burns supper or a Burns night up in Scotland with Robbie Burns. And we thought, well, here in Dorset, we've got our own poet, William Barnes, so let's do a Dorset version of that. And that's what we do. And all these traditional songs and the lovely dance tunes that we play, the stuff from Hardy, which we've been talking about, and the Benjamin Rose tunes as well. All those things just work so well as a form of entertainment and as a way of keeping our inherited culture alive, really. And so it's the gold badge of the English Folk Dance and Song Society.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It's been well deserved all these years of that study that you've done.
Oh, I know. Well, it's been tremendous fun, and but it is nice to be recognised for doing it. I have to say that. Well, we hope you're all enjoying this at home, and we're going to start the second half in a couple of minutes' time. And we're starting off with a wonderful poem by William Barnes called Bob the Fiddler. And I think this poem is in fact about a fiddler from Belcherwell called Benjamin Rose. And in 1820 he sat down in his alehouse and started to write down country dance tunes that he knew. And that little book was discovered about 14 years ago, and we're going to hear 3 tunes from the book. The Speaking Figure, Harlequin Gardener, and The Ferry Boat. So you can, if you've finished your cream tea and there's any space, you can dance along.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The second part has arrived. Exactly what I'm thinking. Your program will tell you that Bob the Fiddler is next. However, it does not mention that following Bob the Fiddler will be 3 pieces played by the band, written by the man about whom many think Bob the Fiddler was written, one Benjamin Rose. Those pieces played by the band will be the Harlequin figure, the speaking figure, the Harlequin gardener, and the ferry boat. But first of all, you have to put up with my rendition of Bob the Fiddler. Fairly reasonable to believe that it was written about Benjamin Rose because he and William Barnes were contemporaries. Benjamin Rose was a farmer, an alehouse keeper, and a thoroughly good musician. He played the fiddle, he wrote pieces, 3 of which, as I've explained, you will hear. And during the poem Bob the Fiddler, there are 2 villages mentioned, Hazelburgh and Shillingston. Draw a line on a map between those villages, and the line will almost certainly, depending on your map of course, go through Belchar Well, where Benjamin Rose was born and grew up. Coincidence? Very possibly. I'm inclined to think it was Mr. Barnes' way of welcoming Ben into the poem insofar as that's where he was born and was raised. But enough of me, let's get on with the poem. Oh, Bob the Fiddler is the pride of chaps and maidens ver and wide. They can't keep up a merry tide, but Bob is in the middle. If merry Bob do come avore ye, he'll sing a song or tell a story. But if you'd see in his glory, just let'n have a fiddle. Aye, let'n tuck a crowd below his chin and gie his fist a bow. He'll dream his elbow to and fro and play what you do please. A maypole-in, or feast or fair, his arm will set off 20 pair and make him dance around dirt bare and up about like fleas. Long life to Bob, the very soul of mirth at merry feast and pole, for when the crowd do leave his jowl, they'll all be the dumps. So at the dance another year, at Shillingston or Hazelburgh, bid Bob be there to make him stir in merry jigs. They're stumps.
programme, The Death of Queen Jane, is an old-style ballad which tells the basic story of the death of Jane Seymour giving birth to Edward VI in 1537. It was collected here in Dorset from one Henry Marsh, who was a resident at the Dorchester Workhouse. And this was collected from him by the Hammond brothers. Robert and Henry Hammond came to Dorset in the early part of the 1900s, and they collected hundreds of folk songs from various singers all across our county. They wrote them down and then they catalogued them so that future generations could enjoy them. So we have The Death of Queen Jane.
Thank you very much. So in a moment we're going to have a song called They That in Ships or New Pool, and this is a beautiful anthem written by William Knapp, who was probably Dorset's best composer in the 18th century, a man who was the parish clerk, I think, at St James in Poole, and wrote lots of anthems. There are still hymn tunes in hymn books nowadays that were written by him. They often have local place names like Spetsbury as well, I think. And this one, New Pool, is very much about the fishing trade. It's about being down by the sea. And so I'm going to ask Joy in a moment to read a lovely poem by Barnes. Barnes didn't write very much about the seaside at all, hardly ever. But this little tale that Joy is going to tell you is based on a true incident that happened, and it takes us right back to the time of when King George was taking the saltwater bathing down at Weymouth all those years ago. Anybody remember that? But anyway, he did, and as you know, when you're at Osmington, you can see the chalk figure of George on his horse riding along the hillside. But the incident that Joy is going to describe to you takes us back to when all the king's horses and the troops were encamped up on the downs, and they would have regular displays of horse riding and so forth. Thank you, Joy.
And this is the tale of Nanny Gill. They were times when Nanny Gill went soldiering against her will. Back when the king come down to view his horse and foot in red and blue, and they did march in rows and wheel in lines and bows below the king's own nose, and guns did point and swords did glare, a fighting foes there weren't there. Poor Nanny Gill did go to sell in town her glittering mackerel, a packed wi' care and even lots, a horseback in a pair of pots. And so when she did ride between her panniers wide, red-cloaked in all her pride, why, who but she and who but broke the road afore her scarlet cloak? But Nanny's horse that she did ride once carried a sword against his side, and had to pricken into rank a soldier's spurs against his flank. And so, when he got sight the swords a gleaming bright and men a-going to fight, he set his eyes athwart the ground and pricked his ears to catch the sound. Then Nanny gave his side a kicking it wi' her limber stick. But suddenly, a horn did sound, and then the horseman on full bound. And her horse, at the sight, went after him, full flight. Wi' Nanny in a fright, a pulling wi' a scream and grin, the wool-brown reins holding in. But no, he went away full bound as fast as he could tear the ground, and took in line a soldier's place for Nanny's cloak and frightened face. Well, folk did laugh and shout to see her cloak stream out, and she did wheel about, crying, "Oh, la, dear," in fright, the while her horse did play sham fight.
They have in ships
going to read you a poem about love of place. This is Barnes writing from probably Dorchester area about his upbringing in Marshwood Vale, and not far from here, I suppose. You know, if you take the Bath Road, you get to Marnell before you get to anywhere really significant. Sorry, Hinton. And sort of about equidistant between Sturminster and Marnell, over to the east a bit, is a place called Pentridge Farm. And that is where Barnes, as a very young boy, was sort of put out to his uncle and aunt following the death of his mother. And so it holds many wonderful memories for him, as I'm sure places do for you. And it's called Pentridge by the river. Pentridge. Oh, my heart's as well in full of joy when I with folk a telling any news of Thickwall Place, and the boughy hedges round it, and the river that abound it wi' his dark but glistening face. For there's no land on either hand that to me look Pentridge by the river. Be there any leaves to quiver on the aspen by the river? Do we shade the water still, where the rushes be a-growing, where the sullen stowers a flowing, drew the meads from mill to mill? For if a tree were dear to me, 'twere thick aspen by the river. There, in grass, new a shooting, I did run on even footin', happy over new-mowed land, or did zing with zinging drushes, while I plaited out of rushes little baskets for my hand, beside the cloat that there did float with yellow blossoms on the river. When the western suns are fallen, what shrill voice is now a-calling home the dairy to the pails? Who to drive them on, a-flinging wide-bowed horns, or slowly swinging right and left their tufty tails, as they to go a-huddled through the gate, a-leading up from river? Bladed grass is now a-shooting where the floor were once our footing, while the hole were still in place. Stones be looser in the wallin', hollow trees be nearer fallen. Everything have changed its face. But still the name to bide the same. 'Tis Pentridge, Pentridge by the river.
The next two tunes the band would like to play for you come from a collection of over 100 tunes left to us from a local musician called Nick Dunkley. And Nick grew up on a farm in Stour Road, just a few miles from Pentridge, just up that way. And he lived all his life in Dorset. His day job was with the Highways Department, but he really loved rambling around the quiet parts of the county. Sadly, we lost Nick a few years ago. He's buried in the church at the top of a churchyard in Stallbridge. It's quite a simple headstone with his name and date of birth, but underneath there's 4 lines of notes, 4 bars of music, and it was only recently that I twigged that it was the first 4 bars of Lyndon Lee. So Nick will surely be with us in spirit when we sing it later on this evening. Regarding the music, Nick loved rural traditions. He was a beekeeper himself, and I think this may have had something to do with his first tune title, the Skeckler's Waltz. It had me puzzled for a bit. Skeckling is a traditional word from Shetland, probably Viking, or something to do with people dressing up with straw costumes from head to foot. It's not unique to Shetland. There's other places like the Whittlesea Bear Festival in England, and in Ireland they do it as well. So our first tune is called the Skeckler's Waltz. The second, Skeckler's Waltz, followed by a tune inspired by a walk along the Stour on a balmy summer's evening. I expect some of you walked from Sturminster over to Fiddleford. And I like to think of Nick enjoying a pint in the Fiddleford Inn with the Fiddleford poker hatching in his brain. So that's what we will play now.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. So we need some readers, please, for sitting out the Ward Year, and some other people as well. So we've got one more William Barnes poem for you, and then finally we're going to finish off very appropriately with Lyndon Lee's. So when we come to that, do join in. I'm sure most people will know at least the first verse of it. So this is a poem that Barnes wrote. He's a very great observer of seasonal celebrations. And so imagine we're in an old Dorset cottage on New Year's Eve. Snow's lying thick outside, but all the neighbours have gathered inside for storytelling, for songs, and to celebrate the change, the turn of the year. So this is called Sitting Out the Ward Year. And who starts?
Oh, yes, you do. Yes. Sorry. Why, rain or sheen or blow or snow, I said, if I could stand so's I'd come, for all a friend or foe to shake me by the hand so's, and spend with kinsfolk near and dear a happy evening once a year, as up with mirth afore the hearth, to see the new year in so's.
There's Jim and Tom a grown the size of men, girt lusty chaps souls, and Fanny with her slow black eyes, her mother's very dap souls. And little Bill so brown's a nut, and Paul, a giggling little slut, I hope will shoot another voot, the year that's coming in souls.
And there upon his mother's knee, so pert to look about so's, the little one of all, to see his first whole year go out so's. As oh may God bless all of us still, going up or down along the hill, to meet in glee again to see a happy new year in so's.
The wall clock's hand is softly still up round the year's last hour souls. So let the handbells ring a peal, like them a hung in tower souls. Here's 2 for Tom and 2 for Fanny and a pair for you. We'll make 'em swing, we'll make 'em ring, the merry new year in souls.
Tom, mind your time there, you be wrong. Come, let your bells all sound so's. A little closer, ball, ding dong. There now, 'tis right all round so's. The clock's a striking 12, d'ye hear? Ting, ting, ding dong, farewell, Ward Year. 'Tis gone, go on, and ring the new one in so's. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I think this is a good point for us to say a very big thank you to the Exchange and the staff and the volunteers here for hosting this lovely, lovely event, and to all the people who provided the food and the tea and everything. So could we have a round of applause for the entertainment? I did mention Artsreach earlier on, but you know, what a fantastic organisation it is, and how much they do for us. So I think for Kerry and Yvonne and everyone from Artsreach who's helped to do this, thank you all so much. So we are going to sing Lyndon Lee, and I've realised, embarrassingly, that right at the beginning of the programme I forgot to introduce our amazing arranger and conductor, Phil Humphreys, over here. So, Phil! There was actually a list that Kerry gave me during the interval of people who were listening all over the country. And I can remember there's a lady from the Isles of Scilly who 2 years ago sent us down a load of special cakes to keep us going. So hello, Sarah, she was listening. And there's people, I remember the furthest afield was Pennsylvania. So we can all give a wave to everybody in Pennsylvania. And we're just going to show you, just before we sing this final song, this little leaflet here. There are some on the table over there. It refers to the William Barnes Archives. So Barnes, in his lifetime, was a great Victorian, really, and he did all kinds of things for people in Dorset. He was an educator. He was involved in adult education. He was involved in the beginnings of the Dorset County Museum. And there are boxes and boxes of all his old notes, his poems, his researches, the posters from the performances that he gave. They're all in the History Centre, and they all need properly organising and making available to people all over the world. So this little appeal, Barnes for All, it's my belief that there are so many people in Dorset who have affection for the county and for William Barnes. And so any donation is very welcome to help us to get towards the target. It's only £37,000, but in less than 10 months we're halfway there. So, and it's all come from people like yourselves. So if anybody feels able to contribute to that, it will be very welcome. So now I'll ask Phil to come up and finish off the concert by conducting Lyndon Lee. Thank you very much. like something to sing? Have a little song? We do. Okay, so this does have a slight connection with Dorset, actually, doesn't it, Phil?
Well, it mentions Dorset names, doesn't
It does, Portland Bill.
Yeah.
Portland Bill. We'll finish off with the sea shanty called Rolling Home.
Brilliant. Right, now before we do that, I've been asked by Artsreach to make a little presentation to Tim. I don't know whether you've all heard this, but Tim has recently got a gold medal from the English Folk Dance and Song Society. And amongst... I can assure you they don't award this award to just anyone. He's amongst a very elite, quite a few elite people, including some from Dorset. There's Bonnie Sarton's one, but there's people from the country much higher up than even that maybe, you know, sort of people like Vaughan Williams. Yeah, Vaughan Williams got this. So it's a very special award, I can assure you. Anyway, I'll go and find it.
What is it?
This is from Artsreach, and congratulations, Tim, for all the hard work you've done in your research.
I think I know what this is. Can I open it now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Blue Vinny! Thank you. I think actually that's probably more use than a gold badge. Wonderful.
Tim, there's
Yeah.
something else in there as well.
Oh, is there? Oh. Oh. Oh, yes. Oh, look, what's this? So it's a bookmark with a Dorset button on it. Look at that. Wonderful. Started by Abraham Case in 1622, Buttoney became a major cottage industry in the Shaftesbury area of Dorset. Entire families, including children, were involved from making the rings, buttoning and packaging. The industry flourished until 1850. With the advent of machinery, thousands of people were plunged into poverty, many having to emigrate to find work. But that's a wonderful example of a Dorset button. Thank you very much.
All hands demand the capstan, see your cables run down through. Now we're sailing homeward bound boys, for all England we will steer. Let us steam her with a will, boys, soon our cable we will trim, and across the southern ocean we will steer our gallant ship. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home, home across the sea. Rolling home to dear old England, rolling home and fair to thee. Up aloft amidst the rigging blows the wild and rushing gale, straining every spar and backstay, stretching every stitch of sail. 10,000 miles now lies behind us, 10,000 more we have to go. Soon we'll see our native country, soon we'll greet our dear old home. Rolling home, rolling home, rolling home, home across the sea. Rolling home to dear old England, rolling home and ever to thee. Mountain all on the
I just realised, folks, there is one person or a team of people that we have actually forgotten to thank so far, and that is Gary and the people doing all the live stream pageant productions. So everybody at home has been watching it, thanks to them. So can we give them a round of applause as well? Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much. Safe journey home. Thank you.